Welcome to the Simply Authentic podcast with Angie and Tonya, where we strive to inspire, empower, and challenge you to be your most authentic self. We'll talk a little real estate and interview entrepreneurs, business and community leaders, and hear inspiring stories.
Welcome back to the Simply Authentic podcast. I'm Angie Mullings.
And I'm Tonya Murfin. Today, we are coming to you live from an event that we had today at the Old Glass Place downtown Springfield. So you might hear some noises that are kind of vintage in themselves. We don't know what they are. There's a party still going on next to us, so you could hear some music in the background, and we can only lean over so close to our microphone, so it's a little echoey too.
Yes.
So just a little warning there.
There you go. And today's event was called Celebrating Women in Real Estate. So what we did was bring in some great speakers. We also had a couple of awards that we gave away. But really, on this episode, we want to talk about the takeaways from the day.
Yeah.
But before that,
yes, we have something
we are
to
celebrating.
talk about.
Yeah.
So if you're watching us on video, we have balloons back here that are signifying our 25th episode.
Woo-hoo!
And we have a glass of champagne to...
Cheers, friend.
Cheers.
Cheers.
That was just us drinking our champagne for you listeners.
So yeah, we're very excited that we're 25 episodes in, and we hope to continue to bring you some great content. And the content from today, again, as I said, were the takeaways. Tonya and I have our takeaways from the day, we also collected this stack of takeaways from the people that were here in attendance today.
Yeah.
And so I guess, Tonya, let's first tell everybody who our speakers were, and we can tell them a little bit about what their the theme of the day.
Yeah, so the theme of the day was connection, connectivity, community. So all of our speakers talked about building your pack, building your tribe, how to be a better leader and to drag those behind you rather than be competitive. So all of the speakers, and I'm going to name who they were. First was Sara Forhetz. You would recognize her by name and face because she used to be one of the anchor women on KY3 for years.
And now she just goes around and she's speaking all over. I know I've talked to a couple of people who said they've heard her speak at their churches.
Yeah.
But that's primarily what she's doing. She went from broadcasting to Convoy of Hope, spent about, I think, 8 or 9 months there, and then went on and she's doing just public speaking, getting a message out. And she had a very strong message for us today, and we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah. And so the next group of people, you did kind of a panel interview on stage.
Yeah, we had a panel of it's called Cycle Connect 417. So basically, because our theme was building community, they went to an event in Northwest Arkansas about a year ago, and they brought back an idea and started it here. So it started from scratch. They had a great idea. They got people on their team to help them build that and create this community. And I've been on these bike rides. It's so inclusive, and they don't leave anyone behind. It's for beginners and intermediate and experienced riders. So they talked about how to go about building tribe or community from scratch. They had their first meeting in December, and they had their first ride in April. And so I thought it was really a great example of how, if you have an idea, you build people around you to help you achieve that, because nobody can achieve anything by themselves. We need people around us who are going to help us, inspire us, and keep us going. And I thought it was a great example, and they've got a website, they've got all kinds of things now, a year later.
Yeah, and I love that you have actually been to them. You've kind of joined forces there.
Yeah.
So you understand the concept.
Yeah.
So you can speak from first-person experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And our last speaker, and certainly not the least, was Terri Tucker, and she's an national speaker and author. She has a book called Wolfpack. And I wish we had one laying here and we would give another promotion to her because it's a really great book. But her speech was really great too. So we're going to get into kind of just some of the higher points that we took away from the event, from each speaker, and then we have our feedback.
Yeah.
Our attendees gave us feedback, and so we'll read some of their notes that they made of what touched them and what they left with. So let's get started.
Yeah, let's do. So Sara really brought her A game today. We got kicked off on a really high note.
Yeah.
She was high energy. She had a great message, a message through storytelling. And one of the takeaways that I had, and I think a lot of our attendees had, is ride the wave. So she made the example of she did a triathlon.
Yeah.
And she was talking about being in the water and the waves hitting her, and then she related that to real estate, or it could be any business, that sometimes the wave is so strong against you, you can't let the wave hold you back, and sometimes you just ride the wave to get to the other side. She made the point about ride the wave and go back to your training, and you will weather whatever storm there is.
And the analogy she gave, which was a personal analogy of her actually being in the water on the triathlon, or in the triathlon, and feeling overwhelmed with, I'm going to die right here. I'm going to sink and I'm going to die, and this is too hard, and why did I do this? And she realized when she made the corner and was swimming back, she said, the waves that will take you under are the same waves that will propel you forward. And so her story actually was fighting the waves as she was going out, came back around the corner to head back, and those same waves she was fighting and feeling like she was going to sink were helping her actually swim back to the shore. So it's such a great analogy
message
for life.
Yeah.
That we often get caught up in the situation that we're in, and it just being negative and terrible, and on the other side of it, you can't see that when you're in the negative, but on the other side of it, you can start to turn that corner and see that, oh, that was supposed to propel me to the next level.
Right.
Now
Right.
I see God's plan for me. I see this is all opening up to where I'm supposed to be, but I had to get through that. So
Right.
it was awesome.
It was a great message. And, she talked about so triathlon was swimming and then cycling and then running. And so she talked about a runner that came up beside her and said, what exactly?
Well, she was first being hateful, she thought, and
Yes.
yelling at her.
Yeah. Like,
And,
who are
"Hey,
you?" Or,
hey,
Yeah.
hey, you.
Yeah.
And it turned out that she set her pace by Sarah's pace.
Right.
So Sara didn't know this. And so when she finally came up and said, hey, I'm talking to you, why are you walking on the last mile? We're a mile from the finish. Well, Sara didn't know where the finish was. So
Right.
so they both pick up and start running. And somebody that Sara saw in that moment as an adversary was actually someone who was following her, had paced themselves off of Sara so that they could make the race for themselves.
Yeah.
And when they got to the end, they were overjoyed that they had completed it and that their times were similar and they were good. And she stopped Sara and said, you were my pacemaker. And Sara
Yeah.
said, what do you mean? And she said, I sized you up from the beginning and knew I was going to follow you because you look strong.
Yeah.
So that was the other tip, and I have that written on one of our feedback forms. We are pace setters even if we don't know it. So we need to always be aware that what we do, what we say, what we post, who we're with, is setting an example for someone else.
Yes. One of after her speech, we went around the room and we asked people what their takeaways were, and someone said, someone's always watching. And that's true. Somebody's watching how you're leading, and you need to be cognizant of that and what you're doing every day in and day out. So great takeaways from Sara's speech, and again, we probably have some more we'll go over here in a little bit, but you want to move on to the Cycle Connect?
Yeah, so one of the points that I wrote down myself from them, and they got up and told their story, which you kind of gave in a little window of introducing them, but that somebody had an idea. They brought the idea back from their visit to Northwest Arkansas and wanted to create a club and a community of women that they saw down there. They wanted to emulate that. So they came back and they started just grabbing people by the hand and saying, hey, are you interested in this? What would you think about this? And they soon formed a team of people who said, I want to be involved, I want to be part of it, I want to help form it. They've now formed a 501c.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
They've got a website, they've got a QR code, they've got, and they've got a plan for all the winter months because they don't like to ride in the cold, and
Right.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
But one of the notes that I made from them was connection. We have so much more in common than we realize. And I think their point behind that was you're bringing people in from all walks of life, like you mentioned before, cycling experts, beginner cyclists,
Right.
intermediate cyclists, and you're putting all these people together on a ride, and although they have different rides, they have more rides for experience, and they have rides for beginners and whatever, but the whole idea is that connection.
Yes.
And that you can go on a ride with 20 people that you don't know, you can just show up, by the end you've got new friends.
Right,
And you
exactly.
felt like you're part of something.
Absolutely,
So-
absolutely. You know, when, and a shout out to Paula Doherty, she was one of the first people to come back and say, we need to emulate this. They're doing great things in Northwest Arkansas, but we have great trails too.
Yeah.
So we can do this. And this is how she describes herself. She says, and there are doers and there are people who have big thoughts, right? She had the idea, her and Andrea Brady initially had the idea, but they didn't know how to implement. So they had to come back and find people who could help them implement that. And I didn't say this today in the panel. So our panelists were Mary Cromery, who we've had on the podcast, Ozarks Greenways, Angela Kirsten Jackson, and she is with Kuwat, who is here in Springfield. They build the bike racks for the back of the vehicles, and Carrie Harrison. So Carrie and Angela are part of the biking community, cycling community. They're in groups already that cycle on a regular basis, but they're more they're elite cyclists. They, as Angela said, she can ride 100 miles in a day, and right. But they had to dial it back in. But so it was connecting back to our theme. It was connecting the big idea people with the people who had the connections to help implement, and then it was staying the course. It was being consistent. Every first Saturday of every month they have a ride, and they have a ride that is beginner, intermediate, and advanced, and you can choose your ride. And I went the first day, and I made this kind of joke on the stage. Everybody's got on their helmets and their sunglasses, and I didn't know who anybody, I thought, oh, I don't know anybody here, but you know what? I'm here to ride. It'll be great. Turns out I knew a bunch of people, but I just didn't recognize them with their helmets on.
Makes sense.
So, but then they come back to, they start and they've done some really genius things in terms of incorporating local businesses. Like a lot of times they start at Great Escape. Sometimes they start at a different brewery that's in the Southern Hills Shopping Center. And so they've done a great job of incorporating these businesses and saying, hey, we're going to meet in your parking lot, and then we'll come back in and we will patronize your establishment. So we come back and we have a beer or, lunch or something. And that's when everybody takes off their helmets and just gets to talk and chat. And so it's a great example of building community. And we tried to drive home that point today of, if there's something you like to do, find other people who like to do the same thing and build your own community.
Exactly. And I want to make a simulation to our podcast that when we started this and we started promoting or seeking out, maybe I should say, different entrepreneurs or different business leaders, we were in hopes to share their story and promote their business so that it would create a bigger community of, I had friends say after some of our podcasts that I've never even heard of that place. I didn't even know that was there. I've since went down to that place or went over there and had dinner. And so I just think that the whole concept there of creating, you take one thing and you share it with another business or you share it with another leader, and then they have a story to tell and share, and it just spreads. So,
And that's a great example. We're trying to communicate or build community with it for our podcast and the people who are out there listening. And so we're trying to do the same thing and promote other people. And it's a great example.
Yeah. And then we move on to Terri Tucker. And Terri, I have one note here that says, Terri Tucker, helpful not only in my professional life, but in personal, motivated to be a better mother and wife. So Terri does this for a living. She's really good at speaking and leading and creating leaders, finding leaders, helping them create new leaders. And her takeaways, I think everybody kind of had the same opinion. She talked about, in her book, it has references to wolves and the male alpha versus the female alpha and kind of how they lead. And so she started with that story to kind of give us a reference for what kind of leader we're going to be. And one of my biggest takeaways with her was that you need to lead the way you're going to lead, but be sure that you're leading.
Right.
Be sure you don't think you're a leader, and actually you're creating more problems than actually leading. And a true leader is someone that doesn't need the title. They want to leave it better than they found it. They want to bring people together. They want to see people achieve higher levels than even themselves. That's how you find leaders and promote leaders.
Right.
And then she gave the word defend, and she made an acronym out of it.
Den.
Den, rather. Yes.
Again, going back to the analogy with the wolf, the wolf packs create their den. The female wolf will create den, and then she went through the acronyms of den, or made acronym. I'm going to get it straight in a second. She made an acronym out of the word den. That's what she did.
Yeah, and the key points I took from that was defend. So be who you're going to be and be proud of it. Wear your head high, hold your head high, and be the leader that you want to be, because you and I are going to be different leaders. We're going to lead in different ways.
And under that, she used the word fierce, and I love the word fierce.
I do too.
And basically she said, whatever it takes. Whatever your goal is, whatever you want to achieve, you do whatever it takes. You be fierce in that commitment to what you're trying to achieve.
Exactly. I love the be fierce statement. And then she also said, but know when to let go.
Yes.
So we often, if you're in a position of leadership, or you own a company, or you work for a company, but you lead a team. It doesn't matter where you are in whatever you're doing in life. But she said, know when to let go.
Yeah.
So we can defend until it doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah.
And you need to know when to walk away and when it's not your battle, right?
Yes.
So when she was talking about that, I was sitting there thinking of my younger self, and I hope that I've got a little more wisdom at this age than I did even a few years ago. But your younger self is sometimes ready to die on the cross of the topic or of the principle.
Yes.
And nowadays, I know better how to pick that battle.
Yeah.
And when to let it go.
Yeah. And she said, if you hang on too long, you become what we consider aggressive. Don't be aggressive. Again, be a defender, be fierce in what you believe in, but know when to let go so that it doesn't become aggression. Because I think when we hang on too long, we get frustrated, and it does automatically become aggression.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. The E was engage, and engage emotionally. Have emotional linkage to whatever it is you're doing. And which was great. And then finally, N, and she asked us a great question that I think we should all, take a moment to think about it. And her first question to the audience was, what did you feel when you got up? Something like that. It was what did you?
Yeah. I wrote down the second question, I think, not the first one.
The first one was,
Yeah.
what did you want to do when you got up this morning? Or how did you feel when you got up this morning? And then she asked it a different way.
And she said, what was worth getting up for today? And that turns that question around where you answer it differently,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah. And I love this term. She said it comes from an abundance mentality. When you ask the question, what was worth getting up for today, it makes you take stock of what your life is and what you're doing, and it comes from an abundance mentality. So sometimes I feel like we don't ask ourselves the right question. We need to think about the questions we ask ourselves and make sure that we are asking the right, what's our purpose? What is the reason we got out of bed? What is the reason we're doing a podcast? What is the reason we're getting on stage and emceeing an event?
Yeah.
What does that mean, and giving back? So great analogy, or great acronym for really, defending, have an emotional linkage, and then your North Star. That's what the N really was.
It
your
was
North
the
Star.
driver of why,
Yeah,
of why
driver
you're
of
doing
why.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think, there's lots of probably days and months that your feet hit the ground and you don't know why you're getting out of bed that day. You, other than just the obvious, I got to go
Yeah.
to work, you
Yeah.
know? So I think being mindful of that and intentional behind that will put you in a different headspace the moment you get out of bed, because I know it does for me. If I'm dreading something and that's all I'm thinking about, why I'm dreading it
Right.
and dreading the day, then my whole morning is sour, and I feel that it's like a coat you put on,
Yeah. Yes.
Versus what am I looking forward to today? It's a complete mindset shift.
It is.
And can we be that person every single day? No, we probably can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's human. We're just
Yeah.
living a human life in a human body. So
Right.
I think we just can be reminded of it like we
Yeah.
were today.
Let's just share a couple of other things that our audience took away. I've got a couple of other notes that I took from Sara. She talked about two types of leadership. One was positional leadership, and
Yes.
I think eventually we'll do a separate podcast on leadership.
For sure.
Of
Yeah.
its own, because we could spend 2 or 3 episodes just talking about leadership. But I love the way
Yeah.
she put this. Positional leadership, meaning someone obviously in a position of leadership. They're the company owner, they're the company leader, they're that person. And then there's a second type, which is the relational leader. And those are the people who maybe don't have the title, but they are leading in their own right. And ideally, you are both. You are both the, you have a position, a leadership position, and you are relational. That's when really the gold happens, right? When
Yep.
you can be both of those types of leaders, put those two things together, and have that kind of leadership style. So I love that.
Yeah, and it was all based on being intentional with both, right? Because
Yeah.
whatever position you hold, that you're living that life or position of leadership.
Right.
And then relational, in most leadership positions, you are dealing with people, right?
Right.
We are in a leadership position in our companies and with our clients. We're leading them because we're experts in our field.
That's right.
And we're leading them to a closing.
Yes.
And we're very intentional about that. Probably when we're not, we fail, we miss things, we fail
Right.
to communicate properly. So it's relatable in every job.
Yes,
I think.
absolutely.
And probably every family and every husband, wife, and every, whatever. I could go on and name all the peoples.
Yeah. A couple of things,
What else?
today was about women. We were celebrating women in real estate.
Yes.
So a lot of our speakers, I love that our affiliates who sponsored the event, and we
Yes.
love our affiliates, but they all talked about the role of women in either their organization. They brought statistics on how women are involved, all of those things. There you go.
A little highlight of our sponsors for the day.
That's right. But a couple of things that were mentioned was celebrate the women around you. You finish faster together. I wrote that down. I love that because nobody can go it alone. So I really love that. And then it said, there was somewhere in there, and it may have been Sara, don't compete against other people. Compete to be the best version of you, your most authentic self. Compete to be the best version of you, not competing against others.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I do too. And finally, from Terri, I had, what you seek, you will find. So if we get out of bed and she gave the analogy is if we walk out this door today and we have a mindset of negativity and we're going to see things out there, we'll name off 5 things that are bad about where we are in this point in time. But if we have a more an abundance mindset, we'll walk out and we'll see 5 things that are great about living in the Ozarks, that are great about living in Springfield, Missouri. So whatever you seek, you will find.
Absolutely. And that was very well said. And we all get that choice every day.
We do. Yeah.
And also, motivation is a big part of that, and who you surround yourself with, motivating you to either follow through or not. Right? You choose the wrong crowd to be around to talk about your idea and say, "This is what I want to do."
Right.
I'm so excited, and they're like, "Wah wah."
Yeah. Here's the reasons it won't work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're the negative Nancy's not on board with your dream, and why squash somebody else's dream? It doesn't have to involve you. You can support them.
Right.
But there's a lot of wisdom behind that.
Absolutely. So it was a great day.
Yeah, it was a great day.
We really hope that we hope to make this event bigger and better. We wanted to come on and do this today while we were still in the same mindset when we just finished the day and give you our biggest takeaways. And we appreciate everyone that was involved, from our sponsors to the people who came and participated. And one day, maybe this event won't just be for real estate agents. I talked to a couple of people today that said, this was the 3rd annual, by the way.
Right.
And I talked to several people that said, this was my favorite. This had the best content.
Yeah.
And then I said, good, next year invite your good clients, invite your staff, invite your sister-in-laws, your nieces and your, whoever.
Yeah.
Because I think the content today, even though we were celebrating women in real estate, it was some
for
just
everybody.
Great,
Yes.
Yeah.
It's for every mother and daughter and friend and leader and business owner and just 9-to-5 worker. And it was for everybody.
It really
Such
was.
great content. So we're hoping that it will grow into something besides just realtors, because today's content, I promise you, was a healthy dose of who am I going to be in the next day, week, year of my life.
Yeah. I feel very challenged.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
we want to thank Gershman for coming down here and being with us and recording on site. So thank you guys for doing
Kate and
that. Thank you, our listeners, for being, religious about listening to the podcast. Again, this is number 25.
Yeah.
And we've got a whole lot more coming your way.
We do. So we look forward to that, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Simply Authentic Podcast. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
Be sure to listen to us on your favorite podcasting app.